Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked, blissed. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
And class, if you'd like to call in and chat with Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And this is where converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli, and John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Dr. Shealy, I got a call from Miles this morning. Miles is in Europe. He is one of our senior instructors. And Dr. Shealy, you, of course, are a senior instructor. And he said he wanted to call in and chat with us. And I said, that'd be great. So we're expecting his call. And if you have some medical concerns or issues and you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. Dr. Shealy, I want to thank you personally for helping on the telephone with my mom on Thanksgiving. And she had a terrible bout. She ultimately, we found out what was wrong. She had a urinary tract infection. And it became so serious that it was in her blood. And she was admitted to Mercy Hospital, which we now refer to as No Mercy. And they treated her with Levaquin, which is a pretty powerful antibiotic. And she's home now. And but I can tell you, Dr. Shealy, about neglect. Neglect at the hospital. It is the most serious thing I've ever seen. No Mercy Hospital has a I don't even know what you call it. The way they staff the nurses and the aides, they work 12-hour shifts. And if you see the same nurse 2 days in a row, that's a miracle. And I don't like that. I like it when you see the same faces over and over again, because in my opinion, when you see the same nurse on Monday and on Tuesday and on Wednesday and on Thursday, that nurse may have 5 patients. And that nurse would say, whoa, I see a change since 20 minutes ago. Something's wrong. And they can act immediately. Or they can say, wow, there's a great positive change since yesterday. Things are working right. And they can report that to the doctor. But without the continuity of staff, there's no way. Wow, there's a helicopter flying over the farm. That's unusual. Without that continuity, that component of change in a person is missing. What do you think about that?
You're asking for common sense.
I am.
And ethics.
Mm-hmm.
What planet are you living on? You are?
Well,
you expect merciless to have mercy?
I started to relate the story about, and I didn't tell it exactly, but I mentioned that Mercy wanted to advertise on a radio station where you were broadcasting as as a medical doctor. Now, we're talking about Mercy Hospital in Springfield, Missouri. Can you share that story, Dr. Shealy? Would you like to?
Yeah, it was still St. John's at that time. Mm-hmm. And one of my agreements with KWTO is that there would be nothing related to medicine or health advertised immediately before or during or immediately after my particular program. Mm-hmm. So one day, immediately, I'm talking about half a second before my program, there was an ad for their medical insurance program. So when it came on, I said, well, folks, I have to tell you, I cannot recommend St. John's Medical Hospital insurance program. I would suggest Cox is better. St. John's stopped $60,000 of ads on KWTO. And there have been no more medical or health ads immediately around my program.
Well, it's and it only took one advertisement showing up for you to do that? Wow. Okay. Well, I was accused of having a very short fuse. And when I was broadcasting on KWTO, I followed your broadcast. By the way, that's how Dr. Shealy and I met. And so I said there was a coin company that was advertising. Well, here's what happened. The first day I was broadcasting, my very first day, I was in the studio, and there was a commercial for erectile dysfunction. First break.
Be prepared.
And I took my headphones off, and I was stomping around the studio like, who approved that? How did that commercial get on my show? And I was livid, absolutely livid. The engineer's looking at me like, what's with you? And so after the broadcast, I went into the front office and I said, hey, who approved this? What's going on? And they said, like, who are you? You just got here. Who are you to make these demands about what kind of commercials run on your broadcast? And so that was the last time that they ran that commercial. And then they had another commercial for a storage shed company. And in my opinion, it was not very well done. And it was the equivalent of a 6-year-old talking about, storage sheds. And I said, I don't mind the storage shed commercial, but I do mind the way it was produced, and it's not professional, and I want it done right if it's going to be on my show, or it can't be. They said, you don't understand, this guy's been advertising for years. I said, it's not my concern how long he's been advertising. If he's going to be advertising on my show, I want it done right. And so ultimately they fixed that. But later on, they asked me about this coin company. They wanted to advertise this particular coin company, and I said, absolutely not. I know the guy who owns it. I am not comfortable with him. I do not want that. I do not want my listeners thinking that I endorse that particular company.
Oh, you missed the golden opportunity.
No, actually, I didn't.
I'm teasing.
So here's what happened. The first time I heard it, I called the front office and I said, look, that's not going to work. And if you do it again, I am going to be likely to talk about it. Second time, third time, fourth time. The fifth time it happened, I told him every time, don't do it. And the senior sales guy said, hey, Vinny, come on. They're such a great advertiser. It's a great fit for your program. You like gold and silver, and they are in the gold and silver business and be a wonderful fit. Please, please, please. And I said, absolutely not, because I know the guy. I know the owner, and I'm not going to recommend him. And so on the fifth time that it happened, I said, that's it. That's it. Look, I don't recommend, I don't support, I don't endorse doing business with this company. I do not want them advertising on my show. I've mentioned it to the front office, and I don't know why it's advertising, but I am not recommending this company. That was one of the, between that, my giving out the phone number for Greg Burris, the city manager, talking about the Chinese factory outlet, and the Baptist church that called the police on me twice with the assistance of a local talk show host in Springfield, Missouri. Those things got me in the front office, and I got I got what's called the Velvet Hammer. The Velvet Hammer is, hey, Vinny, we love you. They love you. We love you. They love you. Everybody loves you. You're doing great. Hey, you know what? If you talk about these things, that'd be wonderful. You know, like who's got the best hamburgers in Springfield? And if you talk about donuts and things like that, that's great radio. And by the way, it'd be good if you didn't talk about Ridgecrest Baptist Church. It'd be good if you didn't talk about the Chinese factory outlet, Walmart. It'd be good if you didn't talk about that coin company. And I thought it was just a suggestion. And it was not a suggestion. So if you're wondering why they don't even remember who I am over there at that radio station, even the owner would come to see me every time I went on the air in the studio. He'd come over and he'd say, "Who are you going to complain about today?" And now when people say, "You know a guy named Finelli?" I've heard of him, but I never met him. That's the response. But anyway, I think that was why I am no longer broadcasting in Springfield, Missouri at that particular radio station. So I wanted to share that with you. Dr. Shealy, so Merciless Hospital or No Mercy Hospital, I have called the CEO's office. And I am unable to talk with the CEO. I'm unable to talk with the CFO. I'm unable to talk with the COO. The only people who will talk to me are what they call patient safety. And I figured out what patient safety is. Patient safety is the new name for risk management. Risk management is the name for the department that deals with customers that they think are outraged, have a gripe, and just may bring the hospital to court. Those are the patient safety people. And they're interested in extracting information from us who have been abused, or our family members have been abused, or our loved ones have been abused by the hospital, and they want to find out how much risk there is with this particular case, or this particular customer or patient. And those are the only people who will talk to me. And when I've called the hospital, Dr. Shealy, and I get transferred to them, they will not give their last names. They will only give their first names, and they say they're not allowed to give their last name. What kind of nonsense is that? They're running, they're hiding, they're afraid of their own patients or customers or family members. I wanted to share that with you. And we come back, we've got Greg in California. We'll take your call as soon as we come back. Class Dr. Shealy's with us. And he worked at the hospital. And they were so pleased with him that they published his obituary in 1960.
Have you put
Greg,
that up on your website yet?
I will do that, Dr. Shealy. Greg in California, you're on with Dr. Norman Shealy. Welcome.
Pleasure to be talking to you two fellas. I hold you in high esteem.
Well, thank you very much. How can we help you?
I just wanted to confirm that everything you and John Stantonmuller were talking about yesterday, about hospitals and their race to the bottom as far as money goes, is true. I experienced it. I spent 35 years in one of those places. And I watched it turn into exactly what you're talking about.
Well, let me share with Dr. Shealy and the rest of our class a little bit about what we're saying. Dr. Shealy, I was talking with John Statmiller, and you've met him. He's been at the house, he's been at the farm, he's been at the expos and the meetups. And Dr. Shealy, so John Statmiller and I were on the phone last week, and I said, I'm going to do a special broadcast about what I experienced with Mercy Hospital. Would you like to join me? And he said, well, Norm Shealy would be the guy. I said, well, yeah, I knew that. And Norm Shealy's going to be on the next day. And I said, we'll get the medical opinions, the next day. That'd be Wednesday. But Tuesday, let's talk about what happened. And so we did. And then at the end of the broadcast, we talked about mercy, and we talked about the lack of care and the lack of compassion, and how the staff is not paying attention. We just touched the tip of this iceberg. And at the end of the broadcast, at the end of the 2 hours, John Stadtmiller invited me to be on with him for another 2 hours on his radio show on his network, which we did. And I believe that's what you're talking about, Greg, right?
That's correct, sir. And an iceberg
Okay.
it is. It could sink a fleet of Titanics.
All right, let's talk about what you know.
I've experienced these hospitals become basically giant corporations where they retain their name, like Mercy, like the one you went to, but they're really under a giant, bigger umbrella of another corporation, and they're just using that name because it's a familiar name. And
Well, I can tell you you're absolutely right, because as I read the back of this business card from Lacey Phillips, who is the nurse manager of 3D Medical at Mercy Hospital in Springfield, Missouri, the back of her business card is imprinted with these words: "As the Sisters of Mercy before us, we bring to life the healing ministry of Jesus through our compassionate care and exceptional service."
I would consider that fraudulent advertising.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope that, I'm quite sure that their lawyers are listening, and I'm looking forward to them contacting us. Yeah, I'm looking forward to them contacting us, because whatever we do, I will expose it as we are doing it. Okay?
I know. I had to laugh really hard when you mentioned you invited that nursing supervisor to come on, because there's no way she's going to come on your show.
She won't even answer my calls.
Exactly.
No, I think that they have this system in place where if they see my phone number calling in, I'm serious. I think that if they see it, they say, "Oh, that's Finelli. Okay, transfer him to patient safety," which is risk management.
Oh yeah, they do. Oh yeah, you're a marked man there.
And so what have you seen? Well, actually, what is your role in?
I was a hospital engineer.
Okay, what does that mean?
We make the building run, take care of heating, air conditioning, run boilers, do repairs, add services to rooms. You know, they need electricity, computer wires. I mean, everything.
What kinds of things have you seen that you went home and told your family, "Oh man, you won't believe what happened today"? What kind of things did you see?
Well, it's all about liability there on one hand, but then if you have a big emergency or a crisis, it's just do whatever you have to do to get it fixed. And right or wrong, do whatever you have to do to get it fixed. And
Have you seen doctors protecting doctors when they make mistakes?
Well, it's very compartmentalized in that area. You rarely know, being in my position. They only tell you just enough to do your job. They got everybody scared there that they're going to lose their job. I know I've had, when I went to get the flu vaccine and you start asking questions, they blow you off. They won't talk to you. The health and safety nurses.
One of our health and safety, one of our instructors is an emergency room doctor, and he said that he's being forced to take a vaccine, and they're going to test him to make sure he took it. And if he doesn't take it, they will fire him as an emergency room medical doctor.
Exactly.
Greg, would you like to stick around through the break?
Sure.
Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. normshealy.com, normshealy.com. And please sign up for the same free newsletter that I get. Greg in California is with us. He's a hospital engineer. And Dr. Shealy and Greg, let me share something with you, and I'd like Greg to comment, and then Dr. Shealy. When I was studying management at the School of Management at the university, one of the things that I learned was that you can measure how well a corporation is doing very, very quickly without looking at the numbers. If you go into the cafeteria, and the cafeteria is noisy and boisterous, and people are laughing and smiling, and there's a lot of fun and exuberance there, the company's probably doing well. If you go into the cafeteria and everybody's really quiet, it's probably a blame-finding organization that's not doing well. So my question for Greg And the reason I asked you to go first is, what have you seen over the years in the cafeteria relating to not the patients, but the employees? Have you seen a change over the years in the happiness as exhibited by the noise in the cafeteria with the employees and the discussions that they have among each other, and the chatting in the elevators, those kinds of things, then and now? Have you seen a change?
Well, of course I have. And one thing you have to keep in mind is that these hospitals, they're not like any other kind of corporate economic activity that you've been involved with. They're their own special breed. I mean, you can come and pay your money and expect satisfaction, but you might not get it, and as you might find out, there ain't much you can do about it. But yeah, I have. They also they want a climate of quietness. They don't want you to be boisterous and do what you were talking about. They'll actually come and talk to you and tell you to keep it down, because they want it to be quiet there so they can promote the healing environment. And
well, I can understand. I can understand if the employees are in the same room as the patients, and a couple guys or gals, or guys and gals, are joking and laughing it up, and 3 tables over, there's someone who is going through the last stages of life, and so I can understand that. But I'm trying to differentiate that from those who you might be working with and having fun and kind of sharing some of your experiences at home on the weekend, something that you might have seen in the movies or television, or a book you've read, or something you've done, and just share some fun things. And that's what I've seen in decline in America over 3 decades. And I'm wondering if you've seen the same thing in your circles, not where you're forced not to.
Well, yeah, because these corporations have been reorganized so many times. You're probably not going to find someone like me who worked 35 years in one place. Everyone's floating around, trying to get the best deal they can, the most money they can for their time. A lot of these nurses are contract nurses who have no loyalty to the hospital. Their only loyalty is to their pocketbook, and they travel around from place to place.
That's a real problem. Dr. Shealy, what are your thoughts?
Well, as you know, I sort of gave up on hospitals over 40 years ago.
Yes.
In fact, interestingly, yesterday, our farm foreman called his wife, who also manages our business, and said he was going into town and he saw an ambulance coming this way with no lights on and wanted to be sure I was okay. And I said, he need not worry. If I get to the stage where I can't take care of myself, I don't want to go to a hospital. I'd rather recycle.
Dr. Shealy, I believe that there are a few ways that you can accelerate one's death. One is to join the military and become a target. 2 is to be stopped by the police for some kind of a papers encounter, like license and registration. Or 3, go to the hospital.
Unfortunately, that is true.
I think those are like 3 of the best ways to die. Greg, do you have any other comments you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I wanted to get Dr. Shealy's opinion on some of my opinions.
I love it. Go ahead.
One of my mantras is, I'm going to stay home and die in peace. I'm not going to the hospital.
Well, that is definitely, I think that was exactly what I was describing. I've told my kids, if they call and I don't answer the phone, they leave a message, don't come over for at least a week. I want to be sure I'm dead before you get here.
And I'm losing track of my thoughts here. One more I got. Hospitals are the most dangerous, unorganized places on the planet. I heard that on a comedian show, and the comedians were talking about the hospital I worked at.
Well, I'm not sure. I think there's the White House.
Boy, there's definitely double-minded men there. It's scary. It's scary, and it's something I'm passionate about. I get told to shut up every time I start talking about things. I admire you fellas. At least you're willing to talk about stuff.
Greg, thank you for so much for calling in today.
All right, I could talk more, but I don't want to take up all your time.
Hey, Greg, you're right on. Thanks for calling.
Feel free to call in anytime.
I've never called anybody before. Never felt anybody was worthy of calling.
Wow.
In my search for the truth,
we're flattered.
Well, you should be, because it's man, we're just outnumbered and overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm like you. I don't know what happened. Like you woke up on another planet.
Well, Craig, let me share this with you and Dr. Shealy. I was on the tractor this morning, and what I do before the broadcast is I feed the cows a couple thousand pounds of hay, literally 2,000 pounds of hay before the broadcast, and I feed them again after the broadcast. And so I'm on the tractors every day, and this morning I was thinking how bad it's going to be. Yes, we're outnumbered, but there's a silver lining in this dark cloud of all these people who are doing all these bad things to us. They can't possibly survive what's coming because they are fully dependent on the system. There's no way that they can all survive. So it's kind of a self-limiting thing. These guys that are doing all these things to us, they won't be around. They can't be around because without electricity, they're going to die.
Yeah.
You raised a very, very interesting question that came in one of Joey's emails this morning.
Mm-hmm.
About flushing the toilet in a situation like that. If you've got no water coming into your house, how are you going to take care of just that simple waste product?
Right. That's a real problem, and that came to mind as well. I was looking at the internet, and there was a post about this Cold War era bunker that this guy uncovered in his backyard. And yes, he had an air tube to allow air to exit, and didn't show the whole bunker. But a real problem is, everybody's got to pee and everybody's got to poo. Well, what do you do in that situation in that bunker? Are you in there for 20 minutes? I don't think so. Are you in there for a day? I don't think so. If it's a radiological problem, you might be in there for a couple of weeks. Well, are we going to use plastic bags? That's going to be a huge problem. So for those who are thinking about bunkers, you need to have, a couple ways out of the bunker in case, the hatch gets sealed. You need to make sure that you have plenty of water, and you can get more water and food and dispose of the waste products so that you don't kill yourself.
Put in an old-fashioned hand pump.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you got that?
Yeah. The problem where we live, Dr. Shealy, your well and my well are probably over a couple hundred feet down.
Yep.
And in Springfield, Missouri, the first level aquifer at 450 feet is contaminated. It's ruined. And so what they've had to do to provide water to the community or the village of Springfield is to drill down below that, to the aquifer below that. And that one seems to be, better. And that comes from the president of a well drilling company, who's one of our instructors, Richard Linebaugh. He's told us that. So, if you think that you can just dig a hole or drill a hole or bore a hole and stick a pump in there, you may be poisoning yourself slowly or quickly. And that's why class, and it's going to sound self-serving, if you want to protect yourself, you need to have good, clean water. And you don't know what's coming. You really don't. You don't know how bad it might be. You don't know how bad the water might be. So you can test your water every day. You can test it every day before you drink it. That's kind of not practical. So just get a good, high-quality water filtration system. And the one that I recommend is by ProPure. That's the one that I like the best. And that's the one we use every day. We used to use another brand, and we like the ProPure the best. Seriously. This is not a commercial, it's an endorsement. So regardless of where you get your water filtration system from, please consider ProPure. Greg, do you have any stories that you'd like to share with us? Any horror stories? Things that you've witnessed out of the corner of your eye?
I just know that, like you and John were talking about, they're racing to the bottom. And like in my experience, you'd ask for qualified technical training, and they'd basically tell you to go train yourself. You'd get a very limited amount of qualified technical training, and the management might get upset if that qualified technical training took too long and took you away from your duties as assigned, because that's what it all, the bottom line of your job description is duties as assigned. So we can...
All right, let me ask you this as a hospital engineer. Oxygen. Have you ever noticed in all the years you've been there that there was a time when oxygen supplies were dangerously low?
No, we monitored that and we made sure it was full.
Okay. Have you ever seen a situation where the power went out and it was dangerous for some of the patients?
All that every time the generator went on, yeah, it's a crapshoot.
Okay.
They're not maintaining that thing like it's a Ferrari motor.
Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and I'd like to share something that happened this morning that ties directly with what Dr. Shealy did at some of our meetups. Dr. Shealy offered his medical expertise at several of our meetups, and he offered a free blood pressure clinic and medical test. And what he did was he measured the blood pressure of anyone who wanted to come into the restaurant. And he spent a lot of time testing people's blood pressure, writing down what their blood pressure was. There was a waiting line, like 15 minutes long at any point in time, just to get a person's blood pressure tested. And then Dr. Shealy offered a sample of something called Kyani. That's the brand, Kyani. And the specific product is called Nitro Extreme, Nitroxtreme. And I saw this, and Dr. Shealy repeated the results, or announced the results to us of each of these trials that he did publicly, right then and there. And our family has been on Kyani Nitro Extreme and some of the other Kyani products as well every day. And I just want to share with Dr. Shealy some of the numbers from this morning. So before my mom got up and we had her, we are constantly trying to improve her health as a result of the damage that the hospital did to her, No Mercy Hospital in Springfield, Missouri. And her blood pressure this morning after she got up and sat down and was 164/84. We gave her a glass of water and 3 half droppers of Kyani Nitro Extreme, and we tested her blood pressure 15 minutes later, which is about the time that Dr. Shealy was interested in seeing the results of 15 to 30 minutes after Kyani Nitro Extreme. Her blood pressure went from 164/84 to 144/72 in 15 minutes. Dr. Shealy, so my question is that the kind of results that you saw when we had the meetups and we did those tests?
Yes, absolutely typical. At least 70% of people get that kind of result. And incidentally, the best result with a combination of antihypertensive drugs up to 3 is about 45% get some control of blood pressure. And if you're a man, you get an ED. And if you're anybody, you get fatigue. But other than that, the drugs aren't too bad.
Well, and that's why we don't want anyone in our family on these drugs that you're mentioning. And when my mom was at the hospital, the pharmacist came into the room and he said, "Okay, I'm the pharmacist." I said, "Great. How can I help you?" And he said, "Well, I have these list of drugs your mom's on." And he read them off, and I said, No, she's not on those. And he got to furosemide, which is Lasix, and I said, we have that here in case of an emergency. We might give her 1/4 of a tablet, but we haven't done that for 30 days. And it's a very low dose anyway. But that's only if she has fluid buildup, or we think she does. Anyway, and that would be not something that she would get very often. So I explained that to him. So what does the hospital do? The nurse comes in and gives her blood pressure medicine. And she starts coughing with this very wet cough, which is why she's not on those blood pressure medicines, because of the complications that they cause. And I told the nurse, what are you guys doing? We turn our backs for a second, and then you guys do this. We already went through this. Her chart says no, 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 and you do it anyway. And so what do? They do it again. Dr. Shealy, they're not paying attention. And I explained Kyani Nitro Extreme. No one has heard of it. No one's heard of it. No nurses, no doctors, nobody's heard of it. And I said, just watch what happens. And I showed them. But they don't pay attention.
Hello there, everybody. This is Guineith Isaac speaking here for the second hour of USA Prepares, and we are live. We had reruns for the first hour, but we are live now on air. If you would like to give us a call, you can call us at 866-582-9933. And we have Marty Barrett on the line.
How are you doing?
How are you, Marty?
I'm glad to be with you again here. I bet you your time...
Hello, how are you?
I think your time is the middle of the night, right?
Yes, it's just after 1 a.m. here.
Well, good news for you and for me and for all the viewers. Vincent, I just talked to him a few minutes ago, and he'll be back on Monday.
Oh, beautiful.
So, you can sleep in.
I've got boys at school. I can't sleep in.
No, sleep through the night at least. Sleeping in for you the rest of the week to be just till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
But I'm sure Vincent really appreciates the job you've been doing, though, to cover for him. It's not an easy job.
Thank you. I really, I'm glad to help. Yep.
I was thinking some interesting things to talk about might be some things like, I'd like to hear some things compared with you in Australia to us here, so we kind of see what system works best and maybe take off on the parts of each.
Yep, that'd be great.
Might be like education. Tell me a little bit about lower level education, like elementary school, and how it runs. Let's see how it is compared to here.
Okay.
Children in school, right?
My children, for some of my children's education, I homeschooled them. That was, in a word, horrible, mostly because of the government bureaucracy. Okay? The bureaucrats here really do not want you to homeschool your own kids.
Huh.
And
why is that?
Guess. Because they grow up to be independent thinkers.
That's right. We don't want them. We want soldiers in line, right?
Children. What was that, sorry?
I said we don't want independent thinkers. They just want people to just line up and do what they say, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. But my children were homeschooled for long enough to now, when they're adolescents, they are questioning me constantly, and while that's rather tiring, it is actually a good thing.
Well, I can say, I just read a book on Einstein, and they talked about the fact that, he had some natural abilities, but maybe the biggest thing that helped him to, discover great things was the fact that he questioned things. He questioned things that were known to everyone. Why is that so? And I'm sure he was annoying as a student in a classroom, but because he did that, we realized a lot of things that we thought were facts were not. And once he got older and kind of lost his, questioning his inquisitive personality, he didn't discover nearly as much. So maybe your children are in for some good discoveries. Yeah,
that's right. Well, the thing is, I realize that it is actually a good thing.
It can be a tiring thing, too,
because I'm a widowed mum. It's a challenge when your children more or less constantly say, but we think you're wrong, Mum.
Well, I think
but I do realise that it is a good thing as well. What was that, sorry?
I said I think most children think their parents are wrong until they get to an adult age, my children, I have a son, 27, and twin girls that are 24, and now they think maybe I know something.
Yeah, I've heard that, and but they're going through the stage of Mum doesn't know anything at all.
Yes.
But that is a good thing. I realise that pretty soon the older one is 16 and the younger one is 14. And within a year or two, they're going to spread their wings and fly away.
And I think that part of the reason
probably
God
on a
made
Qantas
teenagers
jet to
annoying.
Asia.
Well, I think one of the reasons God made teenagers annoying is so that we'll let them fly free.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were adorable little children we want to keep them around.
That's right. Yeah, and but anyway, like I say, they're going to spread their wings and fly away, probably on a Qantas jet to Asia.
Yeah.
Which is something that happens with Australian young people.
Really? Why not?
Yeah. They, there used to be this thing about 100 years ago of where, young people, if they had any means whatsoever, they would go and they would travel Europe for a year. Oh. Okay? And probably young American children probably still go. If they've got any means whatsoever, and they go either to South America or to Europe. And that's actually a really, really good thing. It opens their eyes, and they realise really how fortunate that we are in the West. Because, some places like Asia, Bali, Indonesia, Malaysia, places like that, they can be marvellous. They really, really can. But if people have got any sense, they will begin to see the dark side. And they'll go, wow, gosh, this is a nice place to visit, but I'm not sure I would want to
go home,
here.
Right?
Yeah. It's not necessarily that they want to go home, but it's just sort of like that they realise, wow, aren't we lucky that we didn't grow up here, Or they might go, wow, I wish I had grown up here, is the other thing, because the children that grow up in places like Bali, in places like Mexico, in places like, Switzerland or somewhere, places that people go for the experience of having somewhere to go. The children that grow up in these places often do grow up a lot more freely, and because they don't have a state education system, or because they have, in Switzerland's case, because they have a state education that actually encourages a great deal of freedom of thought and action. And the problem with the Australian education system, the state schools, I have no experience of the private school system, but the state, we have a system of what you would call charter schools here for our private education. But the state school system, the schools tend to be either absolutely brilliant or horrible, and there's very little in between. I'll give you, and my children have been into a great number, and stepchildren as well, because I became a stepmother at the age of 23 of 5 school-age children.
Wow.
And
that's a job.
23, or thereabouts, of 5 school-age children. And they're all adults now. They've got their own lives, spouses, children of their own, and so on. But, for example, there was a school that my stepchildren were attending many years ago, and it was a state school, what we would call a primary school, what you would call an elementary school. And at grade 6 level, there was around about 90% illiteracy.
Whoa. 9
out of 10 children at grade 6 at this school could not read.
Wow.
And when I heard that, I flipped out. not at my husband,
Right.
but at the school. I said, what? That was
Well,
more or less,
here
you're
in the United
kidding.
States, they started a thing in the United States, no children left behind.
Oh, that would have been a bad thing.
Well, except for the fact that it has encouraged teachers in the elementary school to pass the kids along, regardless of ability. And so what happens is we've got some kids now that I teach at the university level, one of the hard sciences, and these kids would have to go back to third grade just to get grammar and really simple things that they and you don't at this point they're very difficult to save when they don't have any basic skills because they've been passed along, and I guess parents didn't advocate for their children. It's kind of a real big problem, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, after I'd flipped out, I said to my husband, listen, we will have to get these children into another school. And he said, well, it's like this. But the house that we were living at the time was a horrible little slumlord terraced house.
Mm.
And we had to move along soon anyway. And the next school that they went to was better. They had a higher literacy level, but the whole school happened to be dominated by one grade 6 teacher who thought that she was the reincarnation of Joseph Goebbels. or somebody like that. Propaganda queen.
Oh, wow.
And if you disagreed with this woman, she would quite literally, there was somebody at that school that was actually informing on the parents to child protection as a mode of power and control. And that happens from time to time in Australian schools. And that was hell on earth for us,
Wow. Yeah.
And the whole school had an atmosphere of fear over it because of that.
Wow.
And half of the school thought that this lady was a goddess, and the other half of the school absolutely feared and hated her. And she thought that she was it and a bit, as we would say here.
Well, let's talk more about that after the break. I think I hear a break coming on.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. Love to.
I'd love to hear more about your education, and then we can go into healthcare. I'd like to hear about that in Australia also.
So that supply chain disruptions have a minimum.
Now I heard the music. Now I don't hear the music. Maybe we're not going on a break.
When the power goes out.
Hello there, everybody. This is Guineith Isaac speaking, and we have Marty Barrett on the line, and we're discussing schools for children in Australia and what they're like.
Talking your school in the elementary years, and how fear was a part of it. Fear in my grammar school was every year we had this man come to the auditorium. He was just a sign painter, and he brought with him about a dozen snakes, constrictors, poisonous rattlesnakes.
Oh, my God.
Everything. And here was this one guy. He'd be up on the stage. The snakes would be all over the place. He has one little, cane with a hook on it, and gets the snake just after they go in just towards the audience where the little kids are. And the most scared person would be the one he would invite up there and make you hold the rattlesnake's head while he milked the venom out of it. And I just wonder, were there no lawyers in those days? Because they thought we were expendable.
That's
and you come from an area that's
awful.
I know. And you come from an area with the most dangerous snakes in the world, right? In Australia?
We have them in the forest just outside the door. And they're not welcome here. The snakes and I have an agreement. They don't come anywhere near the house, and I let them go on their merry way in the forest as much as they want.
That's great.
They come in the house, and they might be in a bit of trouble.
Have you gotten some in the house before?
What was that, sorry?
Have you had any snakes in the house before?
We have.
What kind of snake?
There's a kind of snake called a king brown, and we've had a few of them here. They grow to be about 6 feet long, to 6, 7, 8 feet long, and they are very poisonous and can be very aggressive.
Wow.
So, yeah, they are terrifying. And they would make rattlesnakes kind of look passive.
Yeah, rattlesnakes are not among the meanest snakes. They're venomous.
Yeah.
They've already sized you up.
They mind their own business.
To eat. Yeah, you're too big to eat, so unless you step on them, you're probably not going to get bitten.
Yeah.
You get a lot of warning. But I guess
if you step on a guada, that's a brown snake, king brown, you better pray.
Yeah. Whoa. So how did you get them out of the house?
I'm not going to answer that question. One method that you can use is you can play really, really loud music in the house and find somewhere else to be for the afternoon. That works sometimes.
Wow.
They don't like loud music. You can, but they might just find a corner in your house and decide to curl up there and wait it out. I've had that happen as well. I've thought that it's been gone, and it hasn't been. And we're fortunate here. We live in a mud brick house. It doesn't have wall cavities.
Oh, good.
In Geraldton, we had a king brown in the house, and it was in the kitchen wall cavity.
Oh. Did you hear it slithering in the walls?
No, I saw it going in. There was a hole in the wall which the gas pipe for the stove came out of.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't plastered around properly. And it was only, about a 3-foot-long king brown. But the thing is that the little ones, they can bite from when they're about 12 or 18 inches long.
Oh, that's like
a deadly bite.
They give live birth.
So this one was about 3 feet long, and probably around about less than an inch round. It was just big enough to squeeze in this gap in the sheeting that had been made for the gas pipe, and it ended up inside the wall.
Where did you do that?
That's not a good place.
No.
I can't remember what we did with that one.
Did you get an expert in there to take care of it?
I think we saw it as it was coming out, and then we dealt with it at that stage.
Wow.
And somehow got it out of the house.
That's amazing.
That's kind of scary. We're heading into another break, though.
Yes. Taking you after the break.
Yep. Okay, there we go.
Hey,
hello
Guineith.
there, everybody. Hello.
I'm interested in
Well, you carry on.
I was just going to ask you, what type of other wildlife do you have on your property?
Okay.
Brown snake.
We have redback spiders. Okay, which are what you would call black widows.
Oh.
And they there's a permanent indigenous population of redbacks here, and there's nothing that can be done about it because they're all through the Australian bush.
Mm-hmm.
But normally they don't like to hang around people.
That's good.
They hang around in hollow logs, and they hang around in upturned plant pots, and they're black widows. If you are going to be picking anything up that's likely to be hollow, then you have to really make sure that you know what's underneath it or inside it, because otherwise you might be asking for trouble.
Would they run away to see them, or would they come at you?
What was that, sorry?
Are they aggressive?
No.
Or, like if you upon?
No, but they are poisonous, and if you put your hand right on them, then you'll know about it.
Wow.
And there's occasional deaths from redback bites.
Wow.
Basically, they are what you would call a black widow spider. I don't think that there's any actual difference between them, you know. But like I say, there's a population of them there. You know, it's something that you live with. There's occasionally a spider called a Sydney funnel web. Okay.
Oh, I've heard of them.
They are not aggressive, but they tend to build a funnel-shaped web in the corners of window frames, door frames, etc. And I don't like them, and so generally they get fly sprayed.
Yeah.
They are venomous, very venomous. And I have, as I mentioned earlier, I have a policy with venomous creatures in the house. I don't like them. I don't like them in the house, which is understandable when you've got kids. And there's, what else is there? There's a spider that we call a huntsman. It has a close relative called a wandering spider. Okay. They're also. Do you have wandering spiders?
No, but I think I've seen them on TV. Are they really large?
They are.
Yeah.
The wanderers. I think, you know, apparently the huntsman spiders are not particularly venomous and not particularly aggressive, but the wandering spiders are more of both. And it's hard to tell the difference between them when you just sort of bump into them. They because what was that? Sorry.
You wouldn't want to take the time to figure out if you should be scared or not.
No, they scare me anyway. I grew up in New Zealand, and there's none of that sort of thing around here. But you know, people who have grown up in Australia, apparently they're not frightened of either of these spiders, and you know, that they just regard them as being par for the course. Anyway, if I can, I do try and actually relocate them and send them outside. It's a part of me getting over the fear of them, is to actually find a container, put the container over the top of them, and put a piece of paper underneath the container, and then you've got it, and then you can take it outside.
In my hometown, we had lots of rattlesnakes. And now they've decided that they're somewhat endangered. So the poor policeman told me that if they find a rattlesnake, they want him to put it in a bag and take it out to an unknown location where they're trying to repopulate them. But the policeman said, if they even look at me cross-eyed, I shoot them. Dangerous thing, getting them into the bag.
Yep, that's right. It's that's probably why they're endangered.
Exactly.
If you ever have to relocate a snake, if you're in an area that has a snake issue, it's a really, really good idea to have on hand the garden fork, the garden rake, that has, like nails along one edge, a flat back and nails along one edge. They often use them in stables for raking out and smoothing out the sawdust. They have a flat back, and if you can get one, put a handle on it of about 3 meters long, and if you can use that to pin the snake down if you're quick enough, and then you can make your decision what to do with it, because you can safely grab it just behind the neck, okay? Then you've got it, and it cannot hurt you, and you can make your own decision at that time of what you're going to do with it.
Now, does the head go in the bag first or the tail?
Probably the tail.
And then let go and squeeze the bag shut.
What was that?
I said, and then you let go of the head and squeeze the bag.
Then you put the tail in the bag first, okay? And you let go of the head last of all, and then you shut the top of the bag real quick.
Yeah. Can they bite through the bag?
No. They'll settle in the bottom of the bag, and you can decide what you're going to do from the bag. from there on in. But if you ever have to relocate a snake, that's how you do it. But like I say, if you live in an area where there is a large population of these creatures, you must pretty well have that the rake with a 3-meter handle, okay? And people will go, what's that for? And, the rest of the time you can use it in the garden or whatever. It's very handy, actually, for cleaning up horse manure. Because you can go in a 6-meter circle and just stand in the middle and rake it into a pile. But that's it. You after a while you don't think of it. And I think I mentioned on air the other day, I think it was with Rick Sheban, every area has its dangers, and you learn to live with the dangers of the area that you're in. The other thing about king browns is I mentioned they hate loud noises. If you're walking through the forest, you walk through the forest on a hot summer's day and you make as much noise as you possibly can. And they will crawl away from you before you ever see them.
My nephew was in Alaska and with bears, and they told him to sing and clap his hands loudly as he walks through the woods. So the bears would stay away also. Yeah.
They're generally frightened of us because here in this country, there's probably more snakes that are killed by humans than humans that are killed by snakes.
Yeah. Now, what mammals do you have?
That's not supposed to happen.
Right.
Okay. But it does, and really, my opinion is I don't blame people who do that.
Yeah.
Because especially when you've got small children, the government has a rule where, if you kill the snake, then apparently that's, unlawful killing of wildlife or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But when it comes down to it, okay, people who are in that situation, when you're living out in the countryside, and it's your kids running around, and there's a snake that is in the house or on the property, in the chicken house or whatever. If it's your children's safety at risk on properties like we live on, there's, as an ordinary human being, you can understand why people take the action that they take against these creatures.
Yeah.
And the environmental regulations regarding native animals in this country are, in a word, stupid. You're basically not allowed to harm any wild native animal in this country. It's stupid. It really, really is, because there's a population of, tens of thousands of kangaroos out there in the state forest. Okay,
are they on your property too?
They come all across our property. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we are. The government laws, I've had a good long think about this, and I think that it's to deliberately stop people from being able to look after themselves, okay?
Yeah.
So that they can't go out and shoot a kangaroo and have a feed, or feed their dogs.
Have you ever eaten kangaroo before?
I have. When I was in Western Australia, I had a friend who had an Aboriginal reservation. She was an Aboriginal lady, and she was one of the elders of her clan. And she used to take me out. I used to drive her vehicle out to her Aboriginal reservation. And we used to spend time out there with our dogs. And, her dog taught my dog at that time how to hunt. And because she was an Aboriginal, she was allowed to hunt the kangaroos. And we would hunt kangaroos on her reservation at that time. But it is sold in the supermarkets. But it's a monopoly type situation.
All right,
You have to
more
have
after
a
the break.
so-called license. Okay. Beautiful. Hello, everybody. This is Guineith Isaac speaking here. I'm on the line this morning with Marty Barrett, and we're discussing Australian wildlife.
I can't get enough of hearing about this.
What was that, sorry?
I can't get enough of hearing you talk about the wildlife. What kind of mammals do you have besides an occasional kangaroo?
Okay, we've got two kinds of kangaroos. There's eastern grey kangaroos, and there's another type called a swamp wallaby. Okay?
Huh.
Swamp wallabies can be very, very domestic. They will come right up to you. They seem to have often no fear of humans or dogs until they experience otherwise, and then they become more shy. We also have echidnas, and as well as that, there's an animal. I haven't seen them directly, but I've seen their dried remains on the block, okay? And that's called a spotted quoll, okay?
Wow, what is that?
It's otherwise known as a native cat or a marsupial cat.
Oh.
And that pretty well describes it. They have very much the same ecology as a domestic cat, but what they tend to do is we have a bird that lives in the forest here. It is actually an endangered species, but there's thousands of them in the state forest. They're called malleefowl. And the malleefowl are the staple diet of the spotted quolls. And what they do is they hunt them and they drag their bodies up into the Y fork of a eucalyptus tree and they leave them there. And you know that if you've got the mummified bodies of malleefowl in the forks of trees, that you also have a spotted quoll population.
Wow.
And I've seen these malleefowl bodies up in trees on this block from time to time. But the quolls are extremely clever and extremely shy. And I've never seen one myself, but I've seen their sign. And I've seen a skeleton of one, which was not too old. It wouldn't have been older than a year or two old, just to the point where it had dried out, But the sign was a lot fresher than that of the mummified, malleefowl up in a tree. We also do have ferally. Foxes, and goats, and I don't know if there's pigs, but there could be pigs in the forest as well.
I saw an interesting program once on foxes, silver foxes, and they said, we can domesticate silver foxes in 50 years. What they did is they kept mating them, and out of every mating, they would pick the nicest one and breed them. And within 50 years, they had a silver fox that would follow you around the house, sit in your lap while you're watching TV. Same as a cat or dog. Just showing how easily we could domesticate some species anyway.
Yep. We've got red foxes here, and they're not domesticable. My son seems to think otherwise. But I said, listen, I'll tell you how it goes with fox cubs. They hit puberty, and they become wild. They are a wild creature, and that's just how it is with red foxes. And they are a darn nuisance because they like chicken. And but we don't. I think that's actually the end of the broadcast.
Yeah, and I've so enjoyed talking to you. And as I said to the listeners, Vincent will be back on Monday, but he thanks you very much for helping him out all this time.
It's been great helping him, and I've enjoyed speaking with all of you.
Great.
And as Vincent says, honesty and integrity, and the rest is up to you.
Definitely.
Have a great weekend, won't you?
You
See you
too.
later.
Bye.